everybody, welcome to another oil tutorial with me, Carrie. Today we are painting some colorful beans. Lots of different shades, lots of highlights and shadows, and some real nice texture going on here. I used a wood panel for this one, but you can use canvas or paper, and that was super fun. So let's get started. So I'll just go through my materials quickly here. I've got my palette set up. I'm using a glass palette, and these are my basic colors here. This is a little bit of an extended palette than I normally use, but you don't need all the colors. We'll start over here. So I've got Cad Yellow Pale Hue, Cad Yellow Hue. I would recommend having at least one of either of these. Cad Red Hue, Permanent Alizarin Crimson. Again, at least one of these reds. And then I've got Phthalo Blue and French Ultramarine. And you really only need one blue as well. I also have Dioxazine Purple. Again, you do not need that. You can mix that, but I just use it a lot, so I like to have it. Raw Sienna is handy to have, and it usually comes in the starter kit. I'm using water-soluble oils by Winsor & Newton, and it's the Artisan series. And then I have Titanium White, which you should also have. I've got some palette knives for mixing up. I usually use one like this, but my palette's a little smaller here than normal, so I'm going to use a smaller version so I don't make too much of a mess here, hopefully. I have a bunch of brushes, and there's a mixture of hog hair and synthetic in here, and I like to use both because I find they both have different purposes. So you may have a preference for one or the other, but I recommend trying both to see what you like, the natural or the synthetic. And then I just have a few different shapes and sizes here. So again, I just recommend you use what you have on hand, but typically a small and a large brush is really all you need for what we're doing here today. So you could really get away with just those two brushes there, really. I have some water because I use water mixable oils. If you're using regular oils, just use solvent for thinning and cleaning your brush. And I'm working on a wood panel today. So this has been primed. It's just a thin birch wood panel. It's 8-inch by 8-inch square. But again, I always say anything in a similar shape and size would be perfectly fine. So if you have canvas or if you're working on a paintable paper, that's fine too. Okay, so my first step is always to create my underpainting. So I like to use a combination of raw sienna and Cad Red Hue. Now I take a little bit less of the red than the raw sienna. I just give it a mix on my palette. I also wear gloves. I probably don't really need to because most of these are all hues, but that's just a personal choice. I just find it a lot easier for cleanup, to be quite honest. I don't get paint on my hands, so it's a nice benefit. Okay, so I'm going to take my largest brush, whatever that is, dip it in a little bit of water here, and I'm going to wet my paint just a little bit to make it spread better. I'm just going to wash this over the whole surface. This is going to be our mid-tone for our underpainting. So it doesn't matter how you brush it, just cover the white. And I find these wood panels dry really fast because they're so absorbent. So I can usually continue on. Normally with canvas, I have to wait till this dries, like a day or so, a day or two. But with these ones, they dry in like 20 minutes, I find. So you can continue on to the second part after about 20 minutes or so. And if you're not patient, you can paint this in acrylic and then continue on as soon as that dries. So I'm done with this brush. I'm just going to clean it out. I try to clean my brushes thoroughly in between. I say that now, but it's good practice. I don't always do it, but it's good practice. Okay, so now I'm going to use my purple, and this is where I throw in my composition. So I'll probably go with my small brush here, this little guy, and you use whatever shape brush you like. I think it's hard to tell with this one. It looks like a filbert, it looks rounded. It could be a flat that's just been worn down over the years. Oh, yep, it's a flat. Okay, so whatever shape you like, that's definitely a personal choice. Okay, so today we're painting some beans, and they're kind of in a row, and they're all sort of different colors and interesting shapes. And I like that because you don't have to worry with these beans about, you know, a line going a little wiggly, because it's actually what you want. So we'll just throw in some of these bumps every now and then to show the little beans inside. And again, I do use water for this stage because I find it helps the paint flow a little bit better. And there's a lot of these in here, so I'm just going to start with the ones that have the most interesting shape and then fill in the background as we go. There's one here that's curved a little bit. And sometimes I also find it's helpful to just draw one line to give you your overall shape of something, and then fill in the rest of it afterwards. There's another, so this is a green one here, and there's another one that's white that's right beside it, which is a nice contrast. So I'll put that one in there. And with anything, feel free to make your beans different shapes and sizes. Make it your own. And I'll take a picture of this when I'm done the underpainting, so you can see the attached file and just trace it if you prefer that method. It's a big one over here. I'll do it underneath. Now I might put in the darks now so I don't lose sort of track of what I've got going on here. So this is a dark bean. There's like some purple, darker beans. And there's another one over here. Goes that way. When you have things overlapping, you just want to think which one's in front of the other so you don't get confused. So I'm going to make this one over top of this one, and I might do this one over top of this one here. And I think I'm going to do a dark background on here. Still deciding. So let's throw down some more beans and we'll figure the background out. It's basically solid all the way across with beans here. Oh, there's one that's like spotted. That's kind of cool. Okay. So just fill in the gaps here. Okay, now we have to decide what color do we want the background to be. So I like to either go light or dark usually. And I think I might go dark on this one. The only tricky part is we'll lose a little bit of these beans if I do go dark. So perhaps we'll do a mid-tone. Maybe that's a good compromise. Okay, I think I'll leave them as it is so that I can continue to see the shapes here. So we'll stop at that point, and that is our underpainting. Oh, I will do some of the light colored ones. So there's a couple white, and what I'll do there is just rinse out my brush. It's a little dirty, so I might take a new clean brush with some water, just water, okay? And kind of lift off the paint. Now, if you're using acrylic and it's dried, you can go in with white paint as well. White acrylic paint if you want your painting to dry fast. You can also use white oil paint if your underpainting is drying too fast or it doesn't come off for whatever reason. So I just rub the excess off onto the paper towel that I have here and just keep adding water as I need to. And I'm just going to throw in a couple light ones every once in a while. So I think there's one in here. Okay, maybe I want to put a couple more in. I'm not sure. Still deciding. Let's see. One in here. And all I focus on in this stage is lights and darks. So I'm not worried about areas that are smudging at all. I just want to create some values here. Okay, I think that's good for the lights and the darks, and I'll leave it at that. So if you're working on oil like I am, this is probably close to being dry. So you can probably continue on, wood panels. If you're working on wood panels, this should be close to dry. So you can continue on. If you're on canvas or paper, it might take a little longer. So you might have to wait a day or so, but I'm going to stop there with the underpainting and we'll continue on with color in the next step. Okay, so part 2 for our bean painting here is the color. Yay! So I didn't have to wait long at all, maybe 15 minutes or so, and this is dry to go on top of with color. So I like the wood panels for that. Okay, so I'm not sure what my background's going to be, so I think I'll start with my beans and decide if I want to go dark or light in the background there. So let's mix up some of this green, because that's going to be our main bean color. So I'm going to take, let's see, I will take some of my Cad Yellow Pale Hue, and again, you can interchange them. This just has more of a red tone to it, so if you have Cad Yellow Hue, you can use that as well. You'll obviously get slightly different shades, but I just want this to be beginner friendly, so don't feel like you need to get all these paint colors, because you don't. So a green is just made up of a yellow and a blue. So use what you have, and I think I will do this one and French Ultramarine. Okay. The only thing I will say is Phthalo Blue is a strong pigment, much stronger than any other blue. So when you're mixing it, go small with the blue. You can always add more. It's really impossible to take it away, but other than adding a ton more yellow, and then you're just kind of wasting paint. So you don't want to do that. Okay, so what we have here is a fairly vibrant green. Now, I can use it just like that, but I always like to add a touch of red into my greens, even just a little bit here. I just find it softens them up a little bit, warms them up, makes them look a little more natural. Okay. Now I might even add some white to that because they are sort of light. So we'll add some white in there. Okay, and then when I'm done, I just scrape it all up and I move it off to the side, and we'll mix a couple other colors. So we've got a nice purple bean, so we can just take purple, or again, just a red and a blue. I'll just cheat and use my purple, and I always like to soften it up with some Cad red and some white here, and see what this turns out to be. That's a fun color. So it's a little bit brighter than I anticipated, but I'm kind of embracing the brighter colors these days. So we could probably leave it. If you want to tone it down, like if it's too purple for you, we just have to mix in some more colors to desaturate it a little bit. So I could take some yellow. Maybe a touch of blue as well. Just tone it down a little bit. White always also tones things down. So maybe a touch of white. Okay. So that's a nice purple color. I'll put that up there. And let's see, what else are we going to use? We're going to do a nice off-white color as well. So we'll do that. So I'll just take some white. I'm okay with some of the purple getting in there because it's an off-white. And I like to use what's on my palette. I just took a little pale yellow and we'll mix in whatever's on the palette here, this leftover purple. If you like, you can clean it off and have a pure, more of a pure white shade, but I always like mixing colors together because I just find they start to harmonize nicely. Okay, so I got a light shade there. I'll do one more, and this one I'll make a little bit more white with just the yellow. Every once in a while you have to give it a good scrape because there's like little bits of paint hiding in there in your palette knife. So just give it a good scrape down. Okay, that's nice. So I've got a few shades going on there. There's also some muddy greens, and so I'll show you. Let's do a different green combination. We'll take cad yellow and maybe I'll stick with French ultramarine just so I don't confuse my palette too much. I try to sort of kind of stick with the same blues in the painting, just to be consistent, but not all the time. Just maybe with a little painting like this. And these two, this cad yellow hue and French ultramarine, make a really great army green. I like it because they're both fairly warm tones. This is my warm yellow. Some argue what French ultramarine is, cool or warm. I'd say it's warm. I see a lot of purple in it. And so the two warms make a very warm green. And I like that green. It saves me, if I was using cad pale hue and this one, then I just have to add more red to make it this shade. So that's what this yellow does. It saves me a step of adding the red to the pale. So, but you use what you got, and just as long as you're happy with what you mixed, that's the main point. Okay, I think that is good to start. Just clean my palette knife here. Okay, so I believe I will start with, I've got a little flat brush here. These guys are kind of skinny, so I'll start with that. Just cleaning it out. I always like the paper towel so that it makes sure I'm not dragging a bunch of water into my paint. Okay, so I'm going to start with the brightest colored beans I have, which these green ones that pop out really nicely here. So we'll just lay it down as one flat color, and then we'll add some shadows and highlights in there. And it's also okay to cover up the purple, but it's also okay to leave it. I kind of like leaving some of that purple showing through. It's also okay to let some of the underpainting show. The orange color is pretty fun. Now I have to decide, this one's going to go over top, so I will cover the other beans here. And you just kind of twist your brush depending on, you know, the size you need to get into here. Okay. I'll throw this in a couple more spots, and then we'll get to some of the other colors. I also find with the wood panels, the surface is so smooth compared to canvas that the paint tends to glide across it. You'll notice every once in a while it's kind of thin, which is good and bad. It's not like, it's just different from canvas, right? So it also feels like I apply the paint thinner on, I think, on the wood panels, so they dry fast, and I think they just dry faster in general, so that's an interesting thing. Let's see what we got here. Another green one. It's good to experiment though with different materials, like canvas and wood, and even paper, because you might decide something really clicks with your personality or style, and it's fun to see things in a different way too. Okay, so I think that's good for the greens. Now I'll just, sometimes I don't rinse out my brush because I don't want to get it too wet. I just use paper towel to dry it out. And I'll switch to the purple here. So this is a fun color. So this is all the darks in here. Purple. Now some of this I could use as my dark shade. Let me just see how this goes on. Oh, it's pretty dark. I think I'll just cover the whole thing and then we'll add a highlight. You can leave some spots. Some of these spots I might leave the dark in because it's a nice contrast. So I'm thinking about the shape of the beans and doing like little, they're sort of highlighted on the baubles here. So if you do want to leave some of the darks, you can just do little circles here. Or just fill them all in, whatever feels right to you. Okay, got all that color in there. Now I'll go to the dark green, and there's a couple of those in here. Okay, and there's one more bean. Oh, that's a multicolored one. Okay. So, and one over there. So I'm going to leave those. Now I will rinse my brush out. And let's do these multicolored ones. They're kind of funky. So I think what I'll do is take, I think I'll take this color, this light purple, and it's not everywhere, so I'm just going to throw it in every once in a while. It's like a spotted kind of bean here. Okay, and then the other spots are going to be purple. So it's like a mixture of the two. You could lay down purple and then just do lines above it. I just kind of like this method here. I find when I lay down one flat color and then try to paint on top of it, things get pretty muddy. So I like to usually do this method of just painting one section and then filling in the gaps here. Also, you get to really blend it on the surface you're working on, which is fun. I might add some of this yellow in here too. It's pretty similar to the purple, so it's not really a whole lot different. I think I'm going to keep them pretty simple and not try to overwork those. So I think I'll leave those like that. And then let's do these white beans. So I think what I'll use is a combination of this purple and yellow. Purple can be like the shadow, so that can be the edge. And then the yellow can be, I mean, they're so close. It's not like a huge difference here, but it's a nice contrast, a little bit of a contrast. So I'm just using the outside edge for the purple, kind of like a shadow, and then the middle for the lighter color. And if you just have one color, that's totally fine too. There's some little noticeable bobbles in this one here. Okay, so now I just need to throw in some highlights and shadows in these beans, and I think I'll start with my green. So often what I like to do is use my paint on my palette, so I'm going to take this light color and just mix in some green to that, and that can be my highlight on the green beans here. And again, I'll try to sort of show these little rounded baubles. And think of where the light's coming from. So I'm going to say my light's coming from the right-hand side. So I'm going to hit the right-hand side more than the left. And then just kind of throw in a big one every once in a while where there's a bean. And the light is different on all of them. So one of them might be like a little bit more onto the right here, because there's like a seam in there. I've been learning over the years that the rules of painting are good to start, but then as you develop, you just have to start trusting yourself more and your instincts more, because the rules can really hem you in also. So you don't want to follow them extremely tightly. Okay, that's pretty good for that one. Now I'll do the same with the dark. So I'll just take some of the light and some of the dark and mix it up here. And do a little highlight here. Okay, now I'm going to throw some more highlights into the purple. I think I'll rinse out my brush for that. So I will take some white and just mix it in with the purple. All right. Okay, now we can also add a bit of shadow. So, let's see, I'll just clean my brush out. And I think I'll mix up a little of a darker color here. So some purple, and again, if you don't have purple, just alizarin crimson and French ultramarine make a good purple close to this one. And I will use some of my phthalo blue. So we're just going for a dark shade here. And I still will add a little white. So oftentimes to save paint, instead of dipping into my good stuff, I'll just take what's left over here. So a little bit of this. This really shows you what the true blue color is, because it's so dark often you can't really see it. Now that's really blue, so I will add a little bit more yellow to tone that blue down a little bit. Let's go stronger. Okay, I'm gonna go with that and see what happens here. So I'll just take my small brush and I just want to add a little bit of shadow to the dark sides here. So it's kind of dark on this edge. And you can go back and forth between the colors at this stage. So if I need to soften anything, I can just throw in some more of this purple. And just go back and forth like that till you're happy with the darkness level. I'm just going to throw it in every once in a while to give it a little bit of a pop in here. And I'm thinking now as I go through my painting that I might do my background on the light side. I think I like that so that these beans really pop out. I was debating between a dark background, a light background, or even a mid-tone. Sometimes I like to paint my subject matter before I decide that so that I can decide what works best with it once it's painted. So these ones that are sort of behind are a little bit darker because of the shadows. And this is kind of the fun stage where it starts to really, you start to pick up colors on your brush and things start to blend nicely. Okay, I might even just try an experiment here. I'm going to take some of this light and some of this blue and possibly throw some of this into the mix. Yeah, that's nice. So I've realized over my years of painting that Even shadows have highlights, and it's kind of nice to throw in some interest into your shadows with a lighter version of whatever you're using. Can create some really interesting spots here. And this color can go on anything, really. Any of these beans. Okay. I'll clean out my brush, and I think one final pop of color on some of my greens, and that's pretty good. Sometimes I'll take like a cad yellow pale hue here and then mix it in with the green and get a brighter version of what I've got here. Now it's pretty wet, so I'm going to hold my brush more parallel to my surface so that the paint drags off nicely. And I'm just going to throw this in here and there to give the greens a little pop. It could actually be in this these spotted beans too. Yeah, I like that. Throw some of this color in there. Maybe even a little in the white bean. Could be the reflective light happening there. And I think I'll throw it in this one too. Seemed to work nicely. Kind of a shadow as well. And okay. I'm just going to throw a little bit more green in here where it's a little thin, and then I think we're pretty good on the beans. If there's spots that you think need a little bit more work, just go ahead and add some interest to those spots. Maybe a little bit more of a highlight on some of these purples. All right, I think that's pretty good now. I'm still debating about my background, but I think I'm leaning to the light color. So let's just clean my palette off here. And because I want light, I'm going to take some paper towel and just clear the dark stuff off here. Okay. Now, what I do like to do is use up what I've got. So I'll take this light color and I'm just going to add some more titanium white into it. So what that does is it ensures that all these colors are in there too, which is nice. And if you don't have those colors in, just add a little tiny bit of some of the colors on your palette, like super tiny. Okay, so now this part is going to be tricky because we're just working wet on wet, but I like when they blend. So don't worry if you hit some wet spots and it starts to blend. But I'm going to work with my flat because I like the flat. Any brush that gives you good control, and just go around the edges of it here. And it's going to blend in spots, and that's okay. It creates interest. Okay. You decide how much you want to cover up as well with the purple. I do like to show some of it, but I will cover some of it. Oh, a little bit of water on my brush there. That's okay. And when they do smudge a little, sometimes it works like a shadow, so that's not a terrible thing. So I got a little purple in there, and I'm not going to stress about that. What I might do is just cut in close here and then use a larger brush for the bigger spots there. I also like to show my underpainting too, so I'm not worried about little bits of orange showing. I kind of like that. Okay, now you can switch brushes when you get to the bigger spots here, and it just fills it in much quicker. Okay, and then I decide how far I want to take this white, and I like it. I might even throw, let's just try some of this purple. Yeah, that's a nice shadow, really nice shadow. Okay, I'm going to throw a little bit of that in here. And I might go back to the small brush to put some of this purple in here because it works like a shadow. Excuse me. Okay, so kind of hit my bean a little there. Whoops. No biggie. There we go. Okay. Now that gives me an idea. I can throw some of this dark in here for like a little bit of a darker shadow effect. Not bad, not bad. I think I might throw a little bit of that down there. Okay, looking good. Don't want to go too crazy with the shadow, but kind of liking what it's doing here. Maybe we just toss a little up there. I like to do my large sections with big brush strokes to give a variety of brush strokes. Maybe throw in a little bit more here. Okay, now you can decide how far you want to take it. I'm pretty happy with this, and I think I will stop. I just see a little bit of orange there, which is nice, but it's kind of in the shadow, so I want to just throw some shadow in there. Okay, I think that's done. All right, I'm going to call it done. Almost. There we go. Okay. Ta-da! Take a look here. Very nice. Hope you had fun with that one. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care.